On August 1st, 1976, we gained Republican status. We celebrate it on September 24th because that's the date when the first parliament was convened and met under the Republican Constitution, which replaced our then Independence Constitution. This morning, to tell us a little bit more about it and to get into some of those details and have some conversations around Republic, we welcome attorney at law Leela Ramdeen. Good morning to you, Leela.
Good morning, Raksha. Good
How,
morning.
how are you
Raucous.
doing this morning?
I'm okay. I'm all the way in London, but it's nice to be in Trinity virtually.
Virtually, and we appreciate you joining us this morning. You wrote a very interesting article in the papers recently, and we were going over
Yes.
it in preparation for this interview. But I wanted to discuss with you firstly, what does it mean for us gaining that Republican status? What did that mean for us as a transition from Independence Constitution to the Republican Constitution?
I think I want to go back a little bit to independence. My father was in Parliament 61, 66, our first independent Parliament.
Right.
And I remember how he felt. He said he felt when he saw our red, white, and black go up and the British flag come down, the red, white, and blue come down. And so independence took a long time. And we need to honor the legacy of all those who fought for our independence. But having gained independence, we were not totally free. We were still part of this crown colony with a governor general representing the Queen.
Mm-hmm.
The next step, of course, was to become a Republican, to get Republican status, which Jamaica gained before us. And that would mean that we paddle in our own canoe, self determination, our own president who replaced the Governor General. As you know, Sir Ellis Clark was our second Governor General after Sir Solomon Hochoy, and he became our first president when we gained Republican status. So we're not waiting for anybody knight in shining armor to come save us. We have Republican status, and it's up for us with a new constitution. Remember, the Independence Constitution, which was drafted by Sir Ellis Clark, was amended. In fact, it's been amended quite a number of times since 1976. So in 1976, we had a new constitution, a Republican constitution, which outlined a number of things. And I really urge people to, on Republic Day, to Google and check out our Republican constitution, which outlined things like our fundamental rights and freedoms, freedom to assemble, freedom, the right, liberty, and security of our people. It outlines the three arms of government, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. It outlines the different commissions. For instance, I was on the Police Service Commission for about 5 years. I was on the Equal Opportunity Tribunal, which came after, of course, the Republican Constitution was amended to include the first in the region an Equal Opportunity Tribunal. So we now had a constitution that would guide how we rule, how we're governed, and the rights of citizens. Because remember, as Sir Ellis Clark said in his Independence Day address, he asked us, what will we do with our independence? Well, I asked us to reflect on what are we doing with our Republican status. Things are not, all is not well in our country. There are many issues, although I want to celebrate the achievements of people like Keishon Walcott and Jereme Richards, who made us so proud recently. There have been many in all spheres of life who have accomplished much in our small state of Trinidad and Tobago. But we have a lot more to do. As I said in my article in The Guardian on Saturday, there are too many people living on the margins. You know, I think it's next week, the gospel in the Catholic Church will be the story of Lazarus, the poor man, and the rich man. Too many people like Lazarus sitting on the side, on the margins, while we have really wealthy people. And we now are high, considered the World Bank made us, I think, 2011, 29, 2011. We now a high income economy, which has implications for how we use the resources of the nation. The resources of the nation should be shared equitably, and that is not happening. You cannot have one person, for instance, getting so much money in contracts. I'm not going to name names for things like URP, while so many people are not having enough. They don't have a living wage, and they don't have enough to live decently.
So let
We
me
have
ask.
enough. Whatever slice of cake we have, it should be distributed equitably, and we that's not happening.
Let me
Our
ask you this, Ms.
education
Ramdeen.
system, we need reform, as we know, of our constitution, and
Right.
reform of many of the institutions in our country.
When
Sorry.
you when you talk when you talk reform, tell me what you mean by you think we need reform of the constitution, we need reform of the different institutions in the country. How would that aid in the situation that you're talking about when it comes to equity?
Yes. Well, let me give you an example. In last in 2023, there was the committee set up, led by Barendra Sinanan, to um, to look at constitutional reform, and the nation was asked, or individuals and organizations, to submit our recommendations. Well,
Yeah.
I'm the vice president of an organization called Call to Action for Social Change Foundation, led by Shaliza Khan Ali, Pastor Dottin, and others are on it as well. And we submitted our nine recommendations, which included some things like fixed term for, 3 terms for parliamentarians, fixed date for election, proportional representation. There's so many areas that a lot of people will agree with our organization in terms of campaign finance. You can't have, it's not fair on the smaller parties when the big parties have big guns supporting them financially. That is not equity, that is not equality in terms of people striving to use their skills to represent their constituencies. So we don't know what will happen to all the recommendations that were made, but the Constitution, everybody agreed, need. We know the Westminster style Constitution is not working for us. In my one of my previous articles, I wrote about Sir Gervin, who had said it's not helping us to build our democracy. We're not, first past the post has is not helping people. All the smaller parties don't get a fair whack at it, and we know Basdev Pade, who of course is now deceased. That was one of the areas that he focused on in terms of the need for constitutional reform, proportional representation. So yes, there are lots of issues. Our education system, how many former presidents and others. I was on a committee with John Spence, the late John Spence, Professor Spence. Our education system is not gearing children up for the 21st century. We not, many of our youngsters will be technically challenged because they're not prepared. And maintenance, we're not good at maintaining our schools, as we know. Healthcare system, so many areas where we
So
need to look at how we how we promote our democracy. So Eric
yeah.
Williams said the first challenge for us is to protect and promote our democracy. Are we doing that? How is our democracy failing?
So let me ask this, right?
So
Because some
many
of the things that you're talking about, some of the things that you're talking about there require significant changes to happen, significant investment in ourselves, like for example, the maintenance, the education system. Lots of these things require significant investment. You mentioned in your article that we have a yoke of growing debt around our necks because of years of budget deficits. How do you propose then that we find the ways to invest in ourselves if we're still in a deficit consistently?
And we know the Prime Minister said recently that the upcoming budget in October will also have another deficit. And when we think of it, the reserves we have to look at that as well. And foreign exchange, the reserves we had, I think was 2014 was 11 point something billion. Our reserves is now down to 5 point something billion. And yet, remember, we have a sort of plateau in terms of the number of citizens. So we have fewer citizens, perhaps, but far more. We're spending 7.2 billion on food imports. 7.2 billion. And what are we doing? We're importing things that we could do without if we grow our own food. So let's invest. I think it was Dr. Tilak Singh who wrote an article that they say, time for us to invest in ourselves, invest in agriculture. You know, we're buying things foreign things that we could produce ourselves. So I think there's a lot we need to do to turn things around, because this growing debt will have a crisis, and the forex issue is part of that crisis. If we continue down this road without trying, when you think how much of our GDP goes on repaying debt, what does that leave for the citizens? You know, so we have to look at how we address the ailments of our society.
Now, you closed off your article by mentioning that the active citizenship requires us to play our part in participating in or promoting the political, social, cultural, and economic dimensions of Trinidad and Tobago. Tell me, how do we do that as citizens?
We have to make sure that our different institutions, the government ministries, how are we helping our sports people, for instance? Many other countries invest in their sportsmen and sportswomen. Poor Jareem and Kishon and others, they have to beg and borrow to get facilities for training, etc. So we all have a role to play, yes. But when we bring our skills to the table of life, then the government has a duty, these government ministries, to make sure that they step up and support those who have the skills. We have groups like the Bocas Lit Fest that's doing so well. How are we supporting our artists, the musicians, the, so many areas where we need to make changes to make sure that those who have the talent, that they are celebrated, but not only celebrated by getting a national award, but celebrated to be able to continue their work and to pass on. We need more mentors. If we have more mentors, too many people are moving up the ladder and pulling the ladder up behind them. No. I urge us all to use our skills to help mentor young people. Crime and violence will only be eliminated or reduced if our youngsters see that there is hope. Many of them, you look in their eyes, there is no hope. There is no hope because they can't see a way forward. And it's for us who have achieved to turn back and help build that hope in our nation and in the hearts and minds of our young people. Cannot only celebrate the 200 or so who achieve great heights, in SEA, for instance. What about the nearly 3,000 who scored below 30%, and those who are waiting for years to be assessed because they have disabilities? Every rising tide, as I always say, should lift everyone. Not everyone can't achieve the same level, but you cannot have people living in despair. You cannot have mothers and fathers who are not around. Parenting, one of the things the organization CTA is doing is we've produced some videos on parenting, good parenting. Your children are having children. Nobody parented them, and they having children, and they can't parent the children themselves. So there's so many areas that need support. Our different organizations that exist, thank God, supporting, propping up all the deficiencies. I'm on Credo Foundation for Justice, run by the Holy Faith Sisters, and they run two homes for socially displaced children, street children. When you hear how some children become socially displaced, it breaks your heart. And yet, we're a country that's high income. High income. We're a developing country, yes, but we have enough to do better. And we can do better. If we all pull our socks up and collab. Unity, oh gosh, I'm Douglas, and I'm telling you, all my life I've been trying to promote unity and get rid of the vile worm of racism. Unity will only come if we learn how to love. Do you know we have so many religions in Trinidad and Tobago? We have an interreligious organization. I've been working on the Catholic Commission for Social Justice since my return from England in 2003. And most of our problems relate to the lack of unity. How can we come together and cross party alliance? Oh gosh, all this nonsense about who cussing who in parliament and out of parliament is not going to help. That that creates a culture that's very negative, a culture that's not going to promote unity, and enable us to enhance the nation in any way.
Most
So let's
definitely.
try to do just that this Republic Day. Pray for
Yeah.
unity, prayer and action.
And love, and continue to spread the love. Thank you so much for joining
Yes,
us this morning and for
thank
sharing your
you.
thoughts. I definitely think it gives us a lot to reflect on this Republic Day. So thank you very much, and I do wish you a great day.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye. See you all
Take care.
soon.
Take care.
Bye.
That's Leela Ramdeen, attorney at law, sharing with us some of her thoughts when it comes to where we should be reflecting, how we should be reflecting on this Republic Day, and how we should be moving forward as a nation in unity with love. Let's take a quick break and come back with more on In Our Morning Show. Stick around. On page 12.